We will set the groundwork for a revolutionary way in which we provide for coverage for those who can't get coverage now, pre-existing injuries, and make sure that we keep costs down and people can keep the health care they have.
So I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to be the 41st vote and make sure that we get that plan back to the drawing board.
Are you willing under those circumstances to say, I'm going to be the person, I'm going to sit in Teddy Kennedy's seat, and I'm going to be the person who's going to block it for another 15 years?
Well, with all due respect, it's not the Kennedy seat, and it's not the Democrat seat, it's the people's seat.
Republicans Scott Brown and Democrat Martha Coakley going at it in a debate in Massachusetts for the open Senate seat there last night. Here's the latest poll. Right before this show started, Rasmussen Reports has a poll out that's Coakley up by 2 points. You can see how much it moved just in 1 week. Now, the Democratic-leaning public policy poll, this has Scott Brown actually up 1 point. This was a poll out earlier this week. And before that, the Boston Globe put out a poll having Martha Coakley up 15 points. There's where we stand with all of the polls that we know of. What about this race? Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor of The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles.
Well, if you're for Coakley, you have to be encouraged by one thing. The panic that the Democrats are in now, I think, is going to help them. And the fact that the race is now nationalized and highlighted, if anything, might help them. If you're looking for an upside on this, from her point of view, the Democrat in the race, it's that Scott Brown may be peaking or even surfacing too early. He's the classic insurgent. He's the guy, remember, Massachusetts is 3-1 in registration Democratic. But in this election cycle, in this year, the intensity among the Republicans is at least 3-1. So what you want is a race that's a quiet, off-year election in which your seething Republican constituency comes out on a cold day. Well, it's no longer a race out in the boondocks. So this is a national race. You've got John McCarry writing a fundraising letter on behalf of the Democrat. You've got the Kennedy widow speaking out on behalf of the Democrat. President Clinton will be parachuted in. You've got high-level operatives from Washington shipped up there. So this is going to be a national push. If anything, there might be a slight increase in intensity in otherwise lethargic Democrats who might show up on Election Day.
But, A.B., the fact that we're even talking about this race is pretty astonishing when you look at Massachusetts.
Really, I mean, this would be such a cataclysmic loss for the Democrats if this if Scott Brown were to pick up this seat. I don't disagree with Charles, but I wonder if the Democrats have been shocked out of their complacency yet. I wonder, with 7 days left, if the precinct leaders and all the interest groups and everyone can get into emergency mode and kick into high gear, because in a special election in a very deep blue state where they run everything, Scott Brown is one of 21 Republicans in the entire legislature. And if Democrats stay home the day after a long weekend and they find something else to do and they don't feel well and it's cold, every Republican, as Charles said, will get in that car. And I think at this point she feels the urgency. She's in Washington tonight scrounging for dollars 7 days out, having Bill Clinton come, running negative ads. She's clearly feeling the heat. But I don't know if the entire party apparatus in Massachusetts has gotten into preparation mode enough to save this.
Let's talk about that. You just said she's in Washington, and she is here for this event. It's a fundraising event at a restaurant here in Washington, D.C., hosted by the Massachusetts delegation. There you see the invitation. On that, of the 22 names on the host committee, meaning they raised $10,000 or more for Martha Coakley, 17, according to the Washington Examiner, are federally registered lobbyists. 15 of them have health care clients: Amgen, Eli Lilly, Novartis, AstraZeneca, Cigna, Humana, HealthSouth, United Health, Pfizer, Merck. Steve Hayes, a candidate 7 days before an election, comes to Washington to raise money with healthcare lobbyists when healthcare reform is a big issue in this race. It's kind of interesting.
Well, it's not only interesting for that reason, it's also interesting because healthcare was Ted Kennedy's signature issue. And Scott Brown is running proudly on the fact that he would be the 41st vote. In fact, he can't say that enough, which is really amazing when you think that he's making that claim, making that argument in a state that Barack Obama won by 26 points, of which the entire delegation is Democratic. 90%, almost 90% of the people in the Massachusetts State House are Democrats. And he's running and running again and again and again on this fact that he would be the 41st vote. I think he's going to continue to do that through this last week. And the other issue that he's raised, and I thought raised very well in the debate last night, is on giving constitutional rights to detainees. He's raised that. He's made ads about this. He asked her about it or pressed her on it last night. She just could not come up with an answer. And that, I think that argument is one that targets another group, not the one that Charles was talking about so much, but the group of moderate and independents in Massachusetts, of which there are, I think, more than people recognize, even though the state is 3-1 in Democratic registration, more moderates and independents that could be swayed by that kind of an argument, and private polling shows that it's very effective.
Quickly, Charles, there were a lot of back and forths, obviously, in that debate last night. One moment caught some people's eye when Martha Coakley said that all of the terrorists had left Afghanistan. They're not there anymore. They're in Yemen. They're in Pakistan. Let's focus our efforts on where al-Qaeda is.
Well, if you interpret her meaning as meaning al-Qaeda terrorists are out, well, it's a slight exaggeration. There are a few hundred still in Afghanistan. It's not an outrageously wrong statement. Al-Qaeda really used to be in Afghanistan. It's now in Pakistan. But if it applies to all terrorists, obviously it's wrong. I would give her the benefit of the doubt here. I think she spoke with a sort of an indeterminate antecedent, if you like. I suspect she meant Al-Qaeda. But it does, the larger issue is what Steve is talking about. The idea that the guy who tried to blow up the airliner over Detroit is now sitting in jail with a lawyer and he's shutting up with his Miranda rights is a scandal. The overwhelming majority of Americans think it is, and as the race becomes nationalized and she can't defend it, it's really a negative in her campaign.